Welcome to week 2 of 1 Month Rails. We're going to make a lot of changes in our application. You're going to notice how it starts to evolve really quickly from this point on. So I'm going to start over kind of at the beginning here. I've opened up my command line and I'm going to move into my desktop and OM Rails folder so that I can run Rails server. You can always run Rails S also. It'll do the same thing. It's kind of a shortcut. And this runs a Rails server. Sometimes it takes a little while to actually get started. But there you go, booting Puma. That's actually the name of the Rails server that it comes with by default, and there's a bunch of stuff here that you can check out if you want to. It also tells you, by the way, how you shut down a server. Use Control-C to stop, which we'll be doing shortly. And if I open up this page, localhost 3000, that colon, remember, stands for the port that you're on, which is not really that essential that you know. Put it in there, and it's loading. This is my site. Doesn't look all that great yet, right? So let's make some changes and make it look better. I'm going to use Bootstrap. Now, Bootstrap is an amazing project. It's one of the most downloaded bits of code across the web. It was originally built at Twitter, and it's built for creating really nice websites really quickly without having to design everything from scratch. So for example, if you search Bootstrap 4, you'll find this page, or you can click in the lesson notes below and I have a link to all the resources. You'll see a bunch of different example sites built with Bootstrap. They also have example sites, like it lets you basically do something like buttons and headings and navigation bars, and basically the sky's the limit. I'm even going to include some default designs and inspirations that you can just plug directly into your app. So, but this is not specific to Rails. Bootstrap is actually something that any kind of project can use. So how do you get it into your app? Well, I'm going to basically show you about something called a Ruby gem, and we're going to import it really easily. This is one of the big advantages of Rails, is it's very easy to import code into your application. You might think I'd have to download this, I'd have to include it. You kind of don't have to do any of that. What you need to search for is Bootstrap for Rails, and you're going to find a GitHub page. Now there's a few of these. This is the one we want. It's a GitHub page. It says TWBS, that's the person who made it, and the gem is called Bootstrap Ruby Gem. And we'll get more into what gems actually are in a second. So if this is the code for the Bootstrap Ruby gem, and it says it's Bootstrap 4 for Ruby on Rails. There's installation instructions, and if you read through, there's different kinds of installations. We're going to use the version for Ruby on Rails. So it says add it to your gem file. Now, there's my code, but I'm going to actually open up the code, the entire folder in Sublime Text by going to Sublime Text, and I already have it open, but I'll close this and show you how I would do it. Sometimes it's already there by default. If you go to File, Open, and instead of, let's say we find this, it's on the desktop, instead of clicking on any specific file, just click on the whole folder up here and just click Open to open the whole folder. Now I see all the code on the left-hand side, and the gem file that they're talking about is actually right here. So this comes included with every Rails project, and these are actually gems that the Rails project relies on by default. You'll see here these grayed out lines. These are comments that aren't run, but they explain what the gem below actually does. So weirdly enough, the Rails project actually uses the Rails gem. We use SQLite. This is what's going to be our database. Puma is the server that actually gets run automatically. So by default, Rails comes with a lot of these gems built in. We're not going to cover what all of them are, but we are going to include the Ruby on Rails gem for Bootstrap. So what you need to do is copy this line, and you want to make sure you copy all of it, and paste it in somewhere here. In fact, I think that it might make sense to clean this up a little bit. I'll paste this right here above these group sections, right there. But I'm going to clean these up by basically deleting lines 26 and 25. I'll delete 23. There's a shortcut for deleting an entire line. You can do Command X. So I'm going to delete these. You can select a few lines and do Command X well, you might have to do it again one time. I just like this because it's cleaner, but you know, you can keep it around if you really want to. There are the comments, and now they're gone. Okay, so this is a little cleaner, although it's a little bit less intuitive what's happening. You might want to go in and keep the comments or actually read them so you know what each gem actually is and what it does. But now I save this file. Now, what did I do? I basically didn't change anything except I added this one line. And this is a file that Rails uses to keep track of what are all the gems, the Ruby libraries from across the web that your application needs in order to do what it does. It also serves a second purpose, which is it helps you install those things. It helps you install these gems. It actually, the first line will tell you where it's going to get these from. So this is the source. If I actually copy that and paste it in to my browser, it's going to show me a website where I can actually find a lot of these gems. I could search for Bootstrap Ruby gem. Well, didn't find it. Let's try Bootstrap. Okay, yeah, this is the one. It's named differently here. And it tells you some information. It tells you the different versions of the gem. It tells you other gems that it relies on, how many times it's been downloaded, how many times this version's been downloaded. Here's actually the little bit of code for how to use this in your gem file. But we don't have to get too far into that right now. I can close this out. But now you have to run, it actually tells you in the instructions, bundle install, and then restart your server to make the files available through what's called the Rails pipeline. So let's go ahead and we can copy that, or you can just go in here and I'll shut down the server first before I do this. And I can do that with Control-C. So that actually, you'll get this exiting and you'll be back at the prompt. If you don't shut it down, you actually won't be able to enter stuff in here in the command line, which is where we need to run bundle install. But now that I've shut it down, of course, if I went to this page, I'm going to get an error. So remember, you always have to have the server running if you actually want to be able to interact with it. So I can paste it in, or I can type it in, bundle install. And what bundle install does is it goes through your entire gem file and it makes sure that you have everything in here installed on your computer. So it's going to tell us it's fetching all the data from rubygems.org, which is where we were, using, oh, all of these are already in there. I can scroll up and I see a few of them are green, installing Bootstrap 4. So what happened was it recognized that we added a line here. When I ran bundle install, it basically installed it from rubygems.org. It also installed a few other things, which it turns out are actually, they're called dependencies. Those are other libraries that the Bootstrap library needs. So it's one of the really convenient things about Rails is it uses bundler, which is that bundle install command. That's where that came from. This comes with Rails by default, which helps you not have to deal with all the different versions of all of these libraries that you're using. If you're ever curious about what these numbers are after all of these are all the versions. Every time someone makes a change to this library or someone saves an update, they create a new version number. And this way, in here, when we specify a number, we're basically saying which version we want to include in our application. These little arrow signs actually mean this version at least, or something higher. So if an update happens to one of these and we run bundle install, it should actually update the code for us, which is also really cool. So we don't have to do that manually. Now, a few other changes we have to make. Let's go back to the documentation before we can actually see this in our code.